Hello everyone. So Roy and I from Custom Kiriko thought it'd be a fun experiment to see the effect of break-in switches because it's always been on my mind about is it worth to pay for break-in service, is it not? And now that we have so many sound tests to go through, I thought we could play a few videos, clips back to back, and figure it out and get some conclusions from it. So tell me what you think about these MX Blacks, how broken and you think they are. Are they broken in? If you thought a lot, then you'd be right. But how about this one? Again, MX Blacks. So just tell me what you think. If you thought not that much, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. This was actually broken in a million times. So, what the heck happened? Why do people care so much about break-in when even after a million times it still sounds like this? Especially for cherry switches or NK creams. Is it really because it makes them smoother? Well, maybe. Let's do this game again, okay? Don't listen to the sound signature in particular, even though it's really tempting. Just focus on how much scratch you can hear, okay? Okay, well, you could probably tell from the videos, but it was obvious that the Hoshizuru was more broken in. By how much? It's hard to say. Both of these boards had their switches to MX Reds harvested. The difference is the KBD8X Mark II uses MX Reds from a refurbished board. So what probably happened with it is that someone bought it from the factory and they said, hey, something on the PCB is broken, and no one's ever even typed on it before. While the Hoshizuru was actually harvested from a used gaming keyboard. I remember because I was desoldering it, and it was very, very smooth, even without lube. So, okay, these are all linear switches. How about MX Browns, right? Some people say you can't really tell the difference. Yeah, you can. No, you can. How about we just do a quick comparison, huh? So, in conclusion, we learned that I feel like the Hero MX Browns, which you guys might have remembered, was around like I estimated 2 million, 3 million. I harvested this from a board that the guy had used for almost a decade, 9 years. The board dated to 2014, right? So it must have been like 2, 3 million, if not more. And the MX Browns I had in the GOX 7V, I didn't had breaking at all. They were just hyperglides. So tell me what you think. Did you hear the difference? I think I heard a difference. The 2, 3 million broken in MX Browns sounded a little more smoother. But let's look at a video where I just straight up compare the Paramount Keep pre-tooled MX Blacks broken in 1 million times versus the KBD8X Mark II retooled MX Reds. Paramount Keeps pre-tooled MX Blacks again were broken in for 1 million, and KBD8X were not broken in at all. So what do you think? And this is all recorded at the same time in the same video, everything held constant. And there are going to be a lot of questions I address after, but here's just the video. Okay, so now we have all these comparisons. What can we really conclude from the sample size I showed you and the rest of my channel and my own personal experience, my own personal anecdotes, what I've heard, what I've talked about? In my opinion, I feel that the amount of scratch you remove from breaking your switches depends a lot on the batch you get, right? The retooled MX Reds I harvested from the Hoshizora, or for the Hoshizora, seem to have lost the majority of their scratch, and the vintage blacks did too, though it basically had zero scratch due to being overlubed. When I opened one up, and that was rough to open up, and realize that. But going back to the point, the Paramount Keybs MX Blacks did not, right? These are the pre-tooled ones. Even after 1 million actuations, right? They still retain that cherry scratch, though I think it's at a tolerable degree now, and they feel smoother, but I'll talk about it next point. And the MX Browns had a subtle difference in sound that mainly plays with its tactile mechanism, and I'll talk about that right now, right? So if breaking in my switches doesn't guarantee no more scratch, what justifies a break-in service anyway? So this is something that can't be explained over video, but everyone, it stops the sandpaper feeling. Let's be real. Anyone who has tried stock MX switches or NK creams knows what I mean. These things are like, you physically feel the scratch. It's even after lubing this sandpaper plastic on plastic contact, you need to use a break-in machine to overcome it, or you just type on it for a really long time, like those eBay boards that you can harvest from. But you don't need to go to 1 million to achieve this effect to get rid of that initial sandpaper feel. Way back, I ordered a pair of MX Blacks from Roy and just did his recommended 550,000 actuation polish, and the sandpaper feeling was largely, if not completely, gone, right? And for the MX Browns, the 2 million actuation broken in MX Browns had their tactile mechanism very smooth. Like, it's almost not there, but it is there. If you've typed on MX Browns, you know what I mean. And it was almost absurd how smooth the depression of that switch was. Yeah, that was incredible to witness. But the unbroken MX Browns in the GOG 7V, the big thing I noticed, right, was that the tactile mechanism, the tactile bump, was very much still present. And it would probably take a long time, and probably a break-in machine to get it to that point of the 2014 MX Browns. So, okay, Johnny, I'm just doing this for feeling. Like, it doesn't even affect my sound. Like, why? What the heck? It's just feeling, right? Well, yes and no, right? Sometimes the sandpaper sound is noticeable in real life and makes for a very unpleasant experience when typing for a long time. Like, just imagine that scratchy feeling for when you type an essay, right? For 2 hours straight. It's just not it. Some people do enjoy it though. I don't judge. But the break-in takes that edge off and makes it bearable again. But to get it completely smooth, I'd imagine you'd have to type on it or break it in for a ridiculous amount of time, and also get very lucky with the switch playing nicely with repetitive use. Like, for example, Paramount Keybs 1 billion. That's still not enough to get it completely smooth in terms of like that sound, just eliminating that from the sound signature, okay? So in conclusion, I know this is a really long ramble. Break-in is worth it for getting rid of that sandpaper feeling, but, and this might be controversial, I've come to the conclusion personally that the most important factor to how scratchless the sound of your MX Blacks or MX Browns might be can be largely attributed to lubing technique. Yeah, it's a person issue. I don't want to say skill issue. It's just depends on the person doing it, right? For example, the vintage blacks had little, if any, scratch, but I can't really tell. I know these are broken in a lot, right? They're vintage MX Blacks, but they were over lubed and you couldn't hear any scratch from a cherry switch, which is really weird, right? And that made me die inside. But I'll get those redone. The Paramount Keybs were lubed by Roy, and his level is about what Teja recommends and isn't super excessive. In fact, it's not excessive at all. It's the golden standard, right? Teja's way. And the scratch still comes through. When I commissioned Avalar, he goes a little harder on the lube, and you could hear that. It's much smoother sounding. I believe my Suisse video, if you want to go check that out, has his MX Reds in there. They were broken in. That one should be from like a proper gaming keyboard, so that they were typed on a lot. So when you buy your cherry switches or NK creams, just ask if they go hard or light on the lube, and just know that not only will their technique affect it, but also it's just RNG. Probability. Yes, probability. But let's be real. If you're getting cherry switches and you don't like the scratch, what are you even doing? Right? I agree. Break in to get rid of that initial sandpaper feel. is important, but the amount of scratch you hear, right, will be affected by the RNG of the switch and the lubing technique, in my opinion, from what I've experienced. And it's all personal preference at the end of the day, on how scratchy you like the feel and the sound. So cheers, everyone. And apologies for having like really long ramble at the end. I just, it's final season, but I really want to get this video out. And yeah, I hope to catch y'all in the next one. Peace.